So, hi Gemini, my name is Chris and this is your 2026 tarot card reading, and I'm super excited for this because it's not just 2026, it's a special year. No matter how this reading is going to turn out, 2026 is a year where the frequencies of the new paradigm are stronger for the first time than the old frequencies of the old paradigm, right? And that's a big deal, right? And by the way, there's the center of your Celtic cross, that's the Ace of Cups. Self-love, Philautia, the channel's name, right? Loving yourself, respecting yourself, and just overflowing joy in that, right? Center of your reading, the Celtic cross, center of your reading, the Ace of Cups. That's already a freaking blessing, right? The Three of Pentacles, it's a crossing energy, so you're going to meet great people and you're going to build something with them, right? These people are building a cathedral, right? Three of Pentacles, right? Everybody brings his talent. Somebody is giving the money. Somebody is the architect. Somebody is the, stonemason or whatever, right? But these people working together, everybody brings his own skill, his own unique talents. And what do you bring, right? You're coming to this as kind of this overflowing energy of love, self-respect. And if you walk into a room like that, if you meet other people like that, you're kind of attracting beautiful, wonderful souls who are kind of vibing on the same frequency. There are always narcissistic assholes somewhere around, right? But if you are on that frequency, center of your Celtic cross 2026, you can deal with practically everything, right? Just cultivate. There's the narcissist of the tarot deck. I was talking about him. There he is, Seven of Swords. That's the foundation. Interesting. So there are two different ways of interpreting this card, right? One could be that is the narcissist of the tarot deck. The other could be that you are just disengaging from a conflict, right? You're counting your losses or whatever, your wins or whatever. You're just saying, okay, that's enough. I'm out of here. I did my thing and I'm just done with this, right? We're coming back to this, right? You're overlooking the landscape of your life. Where do you want to go? That's obviously one question of 2026, right? What is the next step? It seems like you're not necessarily have to make a move instantly, right? Beginning of 2026, but you're going to plan your next move, right? Your next chapter of your life. You're coming from the old chapter, riding through here on this horse on the victory march, right? That's the Six of Wands, past energy, right? So you close the old circle, the old developmental circle, successfully, and you're totally above the old conflict, right? There's still the old conflict, but you're disengaging from that conflict. Maybe we're talking about forgiveness here with the Ace of Cups in the center, right? With your victory march, you're just standing on top of your tower and you got so much to do, so much to create in 2026, right? Why would you care about that, right? You're just not engaging with toxic people. You communicate your boundaries, or I should say you're actually enforcing your boundaries whenever somebody is overstepping them. You have to create some discomfort, right? And that is also part of self-love, right? Self-love doesn't just mean that you're everybody's darling. Self-love means that you first and foremost love yourself. And that's not in a narcissistic way, but in a very balanced, responsible, grown-up way, right? Not narcissistically, oh, I'm the greatest, right? But if you are 100% altruistic, that's just as toxic as being totally egoistic and narcissistic, right? So these are just two extremes. So just try to find a sweet spot from between caring for other people and caring for yourself, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. So whoever tries to lower your frequency, that's not worth it, right? So you have to really practice self-love in 2026 in regard to who are you willing to engage with, who are you allowing into your life, and not just explaining stuff. You know, I talked a lot about communicating your boundaries. Sure, that's important. You have to tell people what you want and what you don't want. And if someone oversteps your boundaries, right? There must be negative consequences. It's not just enough that you say, oh, you overstepped my boundaries, and that's not okay, right? Usually narcissistic people who do that don't give a shit about whether you like it or not. Actually, they like it when you don't like it, right? Temperance card, keep your cool, don't engage in conflict, you know? Don't look back in anger. Try to focus all of your attention in 2026 on what you want to create. No matter what happened in the old circle, no matter what you lost, no matter what got broken or just, you know, fell apart, right? You're building something new in 2026 and you're really shaping it. Resting within yourself, right? Self-love, self-respect. Temperance is here. Keeping the balance. I talked about this already. And you're finding wonderful people who are vibing on the same frequency. And that's just beautiful. Two of Swords, that's your energy. Okay. The Knight of Cups in the outside position. Okay, that's a spiritual journey or a new chapter in your consciousness development. There is a tower here in the potential, right? So not necessarily happening, but there is a tower. And there is the Six of Pentacles, which is pretty much the universe balancing something out. We see this again and again in all the readings for 2026 so far. Not in all of them, but in most of them, the Six of Pentacles showed up, right? So something gets even out, balanced out, right? So if you have given a lot in the last few years, it's time to receive in 2026. And if you have received a lot during the last few years, it's definitely time to give. So that is the big message here. And you're creating something, and you're creating something meaningful that is totally in alignment with this highest principle that you're kind of living in 2026, which is self-love, inner peace, right? Resting within yourself. And from that, right? The most important question would be in 2026, whatever you're doing, is it resonating? Is it helpful or supportive for your inner peace? If it's destroying your inner peace, then the fuck away with it, right? You just kick it out. Whether it's people, whether it's, I don't know, whatever is disturbing your inner frequency, your inner peace, right? Protect your inner peace, because this is kind of the spring from which all of your energy is going to flow in 2026. Resting within yourself, being yourself a friend, right? Temperance, no extremes, right? No guilt, fear, shame, no rage, no anger, no any excesses, right? Anything that is over the top in whatever direction. Not in 2026. Do yourself a favor, because if you go into the extremes, if you go away from this, balanced approach, right? There's always in the extremes the narcissist lurking, right? So be aware of that. stay in the middle, temperance. You got temperance here, you got the Six of Pentacles, balance. You got the Two of Wands here as well, Two of Swords. So you might be profiting again and again when you get into this overthinking mindset, when you think too much about something. It's always the most important thing to reconnect with the source, with your inner well, right? With your inner light, inner peace, right? And how do you do this? Through meditation or through breath work. And breath work, you can really do it 5 seconds in and 10 seconds out, right? That's how you do it. For 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, so for however long you can do it, right? You can do whatever, right? It's not 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. You can do that. The most important thing is 1 in and 2 out. So the out breath should always be twice at the, wait a minute. Yeah, the out breath should always be twice as long as the in breath. Okay, so 1 in, 2 out, right? Then what else? The Ace of Cups. Okay, the Ace of Cups is clarified by the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords is the card that shows up in your position, in your frequency here. There's a connection. There's connection with to water, which is intuition or your inner peace, your feelings, your emotions, connection to the subconsciousness, right? And whenever you're too focused on the outside world, right, on something intellectual, make sure to come back and reassure and reconnect to this subconscious frequency of yours. This is kind of a practice in 2026 for you, merging and harmonizing this water aspect, so to speak, and the sword aspect, right? So your feelings, your intuition, your subconscious mind, that which is usually not rational or irrational, right? Combine that with the rational mind, right? So swords energy, that's the mind, that's the intellect, right? That's distinction, right? Differentiation, things like that, right? And then there's the totally irrational intuition, then there's the subconscious elements, right? Where everything is not binary or dualistic, but pretty much just everything, right? So to bring these two aspects together, right? So you interact with this wonderful heart space, intuition, subconscious frequency. And to marry that, to balance that out, maybe that's the big journey here in 2026 for you, right? The most important frequency is inner peace, right? Loving yourself, resting within yourself, inner peace, right? From that, you're going to attract good people. And the challenge for 2026 to bring that together with your intellect, your thinking mind, and not make your intuition and your thinking mind kind of enemies fighting each other, or, oh, that's not irrational, or that, you know, bring them together in harmony. Then great things are going to happen, right? The Three of Pentacles, clarified by the Three of Pentacles, right? That's a reassurance that you're going to meet wonderful, good people, kind of job-related, career-related. But I feel like this talent of yours, right? To bringing together the intuition and the thinking mind, not make them fight each other, but bring them together. Let one inspire the other, right? And then there are going to be these wonderful people with whom you can actually create something, right? Beautiful. The Ten of Pentacles and the Seven of Swords. Well, that's an interesting Three of Swords. Okay, then we got the 5. That's the big one, right? The 5 of Cups clarifying the 6 of Wands. So you have been through hard times, but you came out of this victorious. So you learned something from it. And there's the King of Cups clarifying the Temperance card. It makes a lot of sense too, right? Yeah, speaking your truth, you know, the king is expressing something to the outside world, and he's the King of Cups, the king of the emotions, the subconscious frequencies. And maybe it's time to just allow your mind, your intellect, to be a little more inspired by the chaos of the subconscious, right? Or the unconscious, I should say. And maybe this kind of marriage here between, I don't know, mysticism or spirituality on the one hand, and intellect, scientific, philosophical approaches on the other side, right? That's a good combination, right? That's a really, really good combination. What is kind of blocking you from making that great connection, that everything really flows, right? Is emotional baggage, maybe even trauma, right? So you have to find, as I said, a practice to release these negative energies. Breathwork is totally fine. As I said, 1 in, 2 out. And in the end of it, the last few seconds, you can really push a little, right? So, right? Push it out, right? It shouldn't be super uncomfortable, but the last second can be a little bit uncomfortable, actually, and it should be, so that you're really pressing out, and then you, right, really expand, and even your posture should be, you know, that you're really breathing in and you're opening your chest, and then let it all out and crumbling and, you know, wrapping yourself and pushing the last air out. That's important, right? To release all this negativity. 8 of Cups here, of clarifying the 2 of Swords, right? And if you have trauma in your subconsciousness, trauma is blocking the access to the subconsciousness, right? So you want to get inspired by deeper, or should say higher realms of consciousness. You can make a connection to that, but if you're traumatized, if you have something that is emotionally blocking that access, right, you have to resolve that first. And healing in that regard is a practice, right? It's not something you just do and be done with it, but you have to do it again and again. And that's meditation, going for long walks, fitness, sports, whatever, right? And the best combination for me is definitely meditation and breath work. And literally 1 in, 2 out, I say it again and again. Do that, right? Do that. It's a practice, and it helps you so much to raise your frequency and just to, you know, release these blockages, right, from your subconscious mind. Why? Because they are blocking the access to deeper, respectively higher realms of consciousness and inspiration and support and energy, right? So, yeah. King of Cups, which is the kind of new journey here that I'm talked about, you know, marrying, bringing together the subconscious and the conscious, the feelings, the intuition, and the thinking mind, you know, marrying them, so to speak, and bring them together. That's the big journey. How do you do this? Stabilize a practice of meditation and breath work, and then just hold that frequency. And whenever you're too much caught up, when somebody is trying to mindfuck you, basically, right? And mindfuck means that you're losing the connection to your subconsciousness. How do I feel right now? How do I vibe right now? You should check that, right? Every now and then. That's a mindfulness practice. Just how am I vibing? You know, how am I, you know, what's going on in here? How do I feel? Is it good? Do I feel good? You know, not just blah, 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 one story here. That's the mind fuck, right? That's what the narcissist does, you know? Entangling you into some storyline that is disempowering, usually about guilt, fear, shame, and therefore lowering your frequency. That's his spiral, downward spiral, right? That's what the narcissist does all the time. And the entrance level is either making you feel bad, ashamed, guilty, or afraid, right? Or mind fucking you into some bullshit story, right? Just selling you onto some BS story, right? And not falling from that, not falling to that is basically the practice in 2026 from now on, I would say, because these people, narcissistic energies are always there, right? Wherever you go, you find them, right? And there's even, it's not, you know, the oppressor is even within ourselves. I think Audre Lorde said something about that. I'm not sure if I get the quote. Maybe I can find it. You know, it's not so much about just the oppressor, but the little part or bit of the oppressor that was deeply planted within our consciousness, right? So we kind of learned these BS stories, right, of narcissistic abusers, if you had one in your family, if you grew up with them, but it's just a conditioning of the society as well, right? Disempowering stories, things like that. And we run with these stories, and sometimes we don't even need to hear the voice, the real voice of a narcissist, because that voice is kind of snuck into our head, right? And sometimes we hear it without even there's a presence, right? So that's one way. If you heard your mother, your father, your uncle, your sister, your brother say a certain phrase 100 million times, right? And then if you're not mindful, right, you repeat that phrase in your own mind without the actual person even present. And then you realize, oh, well, that is a mindfuck, right? Somebody has literally programmed me through repetition into believing that story, so that I kind of begin to tell it myself in my own iterations, right? And to unmindfuck you need to be aware of that, right? So you need to be aware of the conditioning, basically, right? Through narcissistic abuse. And how do you do this? Presence, just presence, resting within yourself. Breath work, meditation, mindfulness. And nobody in just take responsibility of your own frequency and always set an intention. You're setting your own frequency. You are responsible for your own frequency. And in 2026, you're going to practice that you are indeed capable of setting that frequency, and that you're strong enough and wise enough not to allow anybody to tune your frequency through guilt, fear, shame, through some intellectual story that leads to that disempowering downward spiral, right? To just realize, oh, no, that's not where I want to go. That's not the frequency I want, right? And that means to say no, and let no be a complete sentence if in doubt, right? If someone doesn't, everybody is deserving an explanation from you, right? So there is the tower, and maybe you are bringing about the tower yourself, not necessarily, this could be conflict. This could be you saying no, right? This could be maybe you kicking a few people out of your life who are no longer you can have a lot of people who you called your friends for a while, and you suddenly might realize, whenever I am around them, I feel kind of drained, my frequency drops. It's kind of exhausting to go there. I'm losing energy when I'm going there. And then you must ask yourself, are they really playing on my team? Are they really supporting me? Or why do I feel King of Swords is at the bottom of the deck, and at the bottom of the Clarifier deck there's the Ten of Swords. So maybe there is something that needs to go in 2026. Either it's a habit of yourself, you know, that self defeating narrative or something like that, right? Or it's someone who is kind of telling you that story, and then by all means kick them out of your life. Yeah. So a lot of healing. And by the way, there's something you're doing, keep doing that. There's something you're bringing into 2026 that is kind of working for you, right? Don't, even if it's not working perfectly, or it's not, you know, maybe it needs some work or overhaul or whatever, but don't throw it out, right? What has worked so far, keep that. And what you're adding to it is this constant practice in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it is your career, whether it's your job, whether it is how you make money. Just upholding your frequency, resting within yourself, protect your inner peace. I say it again. That's very, very important. Protect your inner peace. That's where all your power lies. And that's why the narcissist is always targeting your inner peace. How? Cock and bull, intellectual story, or directly attacking your frequency by guilt, fear, shame, you know, sob stories or guilt, fear, shame stories, you know, and then spiraling you down. That's how the narcissist steals your energy, basically, literally steals your energy, and is trying to lower you so that the narcissist, him, herself, can have this false, I might add, but kind of false sense of elevation, which is very pitiful, to push others down to feel elevated, which is, by the way, not real elevation. But, you know, you're not rising in consciousness or frequency if you push others down, but you create that illusion for the moment, and that works for them. Very pitiful. These people are there, you can't change them. But, you know, don't look back into that. Disengage from the conflict. There's a radical acceptance here as well. That's also self-love practice, Ace of Cups, right? You can't change them. You shouldn't even try. Speak your truth and go for justice. Do never ever go for revenge, because that's, you know, hatred is leading to the dark side. Yoda, yeah. That's just how it is. And that's very, very true. So disengage from this negative energy. Do not fight the old system. Build the new system. And I see you building it with authenticity, self-love, self-respect, self-care, and keeping it in a balance, avoiding extremes. Why? Because you meet the narcissist at the extremes, right? So keep it balanced. There's a lot of healing, and you not being available for some BS stories or negative frequencies might mean that you could kick out a few people from your life, out of your life, right? Or just not engaging into any of that, right? Any of Seven of Swords energies, right? So that's okay. Honestly, let's just get some quotes here. I got one good one for you, but I'm not sure if you want to hear this. You know, it's better to be alone than to be in bad company. It's better to be alone than to be in bad company. Where your fear is, there is your task. Where's your fear? There's your task. Okay, that's not for everybody. I think that's just for some people, maybe. Yeah, and then just learn to stand ambiguity, right? Learn to stand ambiguity. That's from Alan Downs, The Velvet Rage, great book. Learn to stand ambiguity is also a spiritual practice to protect your inner peace. So what you should not do in 2026 is to make a decision or to choose a story, although you don't know the story. So ambiguity basically means that it could be this way, it could be that way, it could be a third way. I don't know. We don't know. There's no chance we could verify or falsify each version of the truth. So these are just possibilities and we can't verify or falsify that. Hence, we are confronted with ambiguity, right? And what most people do is it's uncomfortable to be confronted with ambiguity. And you can only stand ambiguity if you're resting within yourself and if you have an anchor point within yourself. And you're not so much depending on the outside world, but there's an anchor point within yourself, right? There's a deeper connection to higher realms of consciousness, true yourself consciousness, which is everybody's, every human being's birthright to have, right? Usually we get traumatized not to have it, but you know, in 2026 you're healing that and there's a lot of support from the universe for it. So learning to stand ambiguity, if you're not in your inner peace, right, it's very hard to stand ambiguity. If you're scared, if you live in guilt, fear, shame, if your frequency is very low, if there's a sense of urgency created, constant fear, guilt, shame tripping, right, you most likely cannot stand ambiguity. So you just choose a version of the truth or possibility out of these range of possibilities, right? You can't verify or falsify any of these possibilities, right? But you're just choosing one story. Why? Because you can't stand the stress of ambiguity. If you're resting within yourself, you can stand that. But if you're stressed, if you're scared, if you feel afraid, shamed, whatever, people just choose a story. That's just how people react. And in that way, you can be manipulated, right? People can make one story seem more plausible or maybe even verified. And then you're choosing that, right? But if you're in a lower frequency, you can be manipulated into choosing a story in a situation of ambiguity. Right? So you don't know which version is the right version. You don't know. Ambiguity. Somebody scares you, somebody shames you, somebody makes you afraid and tells you, oh, there's your escape, you know, choose that story. Bam, and you're sold on. You're mind fucked, basically. You're programmed into a story, right? And you're following that script from that moment on. If you, on the other side, rest within yourself, if you rely on yourself, you're the king of swords, by the way, right? So you know your shit. Nobody can tell you anything, right? So if you just know, okay, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true, you know, several options, right? So you're standing at ambiguity and then you just rest within yourself and just shrug your shoulders and say, okay, so it's ambiguity then. I can stand that. Now put dire, right? And you're resting within yourself. And you're not choosing a story and you're not running with someone else's script that is just handed to you. Thus, you're avoiding the trap of the narcissist, right? And to do that is you know exactly how to do it, you know? There's the King of Swords, right? You know everything you need to know. You just have to practice it and trust it. And what else we got? You got Oh yeah, when you are down, I can't even write my own handwriting. When you are down, force yourself to do something contrary to that. So let's just say somebody or yourself, or you're just down in frequency. How do you get out of this, right? You can meditate, you can do breath work, but usually you have to do something, get into the physical and, I don't know, go for a walk, ride your bike, physical activity. That's usually snapping you out of it. And then afterwards you can, I don't know, take a shower and meditate or do breath work or something like that. Release that. And then you're good, right? But you really have to, again, develop a practice when you're down to bring you back up. And, not when you're down, watch that sad movie or listen to that sad song, That's kind of, yay, let's just roll around in the mud, You're just amplifying the negative feelings if you feed them with same frequency emotions, right? True sad songs, true watching that sad movies. And sometimes we do that because we need it, and then it can be part of the healing process. Absolutely. I did it. I totally understand how sometimes that's just what, bowl of ice cream and I don't know, that movie again, right? And sometimes you need that. But the advice would be, do that when it's absolutely necessary. Do that once or every now and then. I don't know, not too often. But just know that usually the best way to raise your frequency is to just get in the physical, right? And just do something where you just occupied with what it is that you're doing, going for a walk, jogging, biking, hiking, whatever, where you're in the physical and you're really feeling it and going into it, right? And interacting with nature and things like that. That snaps you out of it. And then breathwork and meditation, absolutely. So, yeah, that's 2026. I'm not going to tell you you're going to meet a stranger who has a black hat and you're going to marry. You find someone else who's telling you that you get a Mercedes and a new boyfriend and something like that. This is a little more, I don't know. That's just how I do my readings. And if you liked it, now, Badaya, share, like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think about it, and hopefully see you next time. Oh, no. Wait. God, we didn't even pull a Blue Angel Oracle card. The Ancient of Days. For the yearly reading, that really needs to happen, right? The Eternal Flame, okay. You are the creative expression of the life force that flows through you. Thus, you are full of endless possibilities. Listen to the infinite wisdom of your soul, for it will guide you to creations of love and light. That's 2026, right? You're really creating something. What it is, you're combining what you did before, or some aspect of what you did before, which was very practical, down to earth, rational, Pentacles energy, maybe how you made your money so far, very practical, down to earth, right? You combine that with something spiritual, with something that is fueled by your Ace of Cups, which could also, by the way, be that you finally tap into your calling, you're just vibing in it, there's a frequency, a resonance here that vibes through everything, and it's so much bigger than what you did before, right? But you seem to combine that practical thing that you did before, Knight of Pentacles, with the Knight of Cups. That's the new thing, right? Okay, this flame is your intuition, your intuitive wisdom. Let it burn through all illusions and obstacles, so your path may be clear and bright. Observe your breath. breathwork, right? It will lead you to the golden temple deep within you. Enter the majestic glory that is authentically you. Yeah, and that's pretty much authenticity, right? Feel you're reborn with each new breath as you connect with the timeless love and potential you hold. Go forth and live your potential. All is possible for you now. Wow, living your potential. See, that's kind of what I overlooked a little. The Ace of Cups is the ultimate potential, right? Because you really connect into something that's kind of greater than you, right? And that is what 2026 is all about. Success, and it just flows. It just flows. And wherever you let it flow, it will create something. So you really have to set your intention and set your focus. That's also the crown of your reading with the Two of Wands, right? So you are holding the steering wheel of your life, right? You are steering your own ship. That is you, your life. Do not look down. Look up, right? Focus on what you want to create, not what you want to fight. No disempowering BS stories of guilt, fear, shame. No. And if there are people who tell you this over and over, then they need to go. No toxic people in 2026. You got bigger fish to fry. And now I'm shutting up because that's really all I got. And it's a happy, great reading, and I'm really happy for you. Now, goodbye, my friend. That's all I got. Ciao.